Hey, my name's Blake Jennings. Doing my capstone presentation today. I teach at Ohatchee High School, where I'll be starting my 8th year there this upcoming fall. Work with some great administrators, some great people that really helped implement this action plan throughout the school year. My action research, the topic was increasing ACT scores for free and or reduced lunch students at Ohatchee High School. Some background and significance of this PowerPoint goes on with, talking about what are our numbers when it comes to free and reduced lunch. We have a little over 51% of our students at Ohatchee High School who are on free and reduced lunch. Not necessarily the highest in the county. There are definitely 2 or 3 other schools that are in that 58% to that 62% mark. But in knowing that, we do have some kids that are really, really high, or we have some kids that are really, really low. And a lot of times we see that our kids that are low come from these free and reduced lunch type of students, these students that come from high poverty situations. We're trying to, the significance of this is how can we close this achievement gap? And calling it the achievement gap between these different subpopulations of students, necessarily how can we close the opportunity gap? Because there's a lot of times the students who come from high poverty do not have those same opportunities as some of our students that come from, homes that have money. The next part of this was our literature review. For my action plan and looking at literature review, you've got quantitative data versus qualitative data. Some of the quantitative data that we looked at and you've seen in a lot of different research was just comparing different standardized tests and comparing standardized tests in kids that are on free and reduced lunch versus kids that are not, or kids in those high poverty situations versus kids that are not. And it's all over the world. There's research from Turkey, there's research from England, obviously plenty of research here in the United States. A lot of this research, they compared reading and math levels. All right, what were those reading and math scores and how did they compare? Another thing they looked at was AP placement. Could possibly, doing this research, putting kids into AP classes, could it bring up those kids that come from high poverty situations? And a lot of times when they looked at that research, you saw that when you put the kids that aren't on free and reduced lunch into AP classes, and you introduce these AP stuff, and you also introduce the kids that come from low poverty or high poverty situations, it showed that they just both move together. You really don't close that achievement gap. There's no narrowing of that achievement gap. And then there was some qualitative data. And you got to see as you did the research, there was nowhere near as much qualitative data as there was quantitative, because with the quantitative, they want to show you the numbers. Qualitative, they want to try to tell you how to fix it, but they don't know how to fix it. Some of the big 3 things on that qualitative data was parent education. They said played one of the biggest roles. A parent that has a bachelor's degree, obviously their student's not going to be in as in a high poverty stricken situation, necessarily not going to be on free and reduced lunch. Early childhood education, they thought that children in the preschool level and kindergarten through that 3rd grade level really defined who they were going to be as a student and what they were going to learn. The next part was the quality of teachers. A lot of times when you look at the quality of teachers in an area that, let's say, has lots of high poverty, lots of students on free and reduced lunch, those teachers necessarily don't want to teach there, the good teachers, because they know it's a struggle. They know how hard it could possibly be if they get in that situation. So a lot of times you get teachers there that just have a regular degree that are thrown in a classroom and do not have that highly qualified type of status to be able to teach those students. And when you look at that, we had our problem statement. The cumulative ACT and ACT reading scores among 11th grade students of different student socioeconomic status is too large. That's at Ohatchee High School. You see here with our cumulative data on the left side, you see that there's a difference in 3.5 to about 3.8 in students who are on free and reduced lunch and those that are not. You see, though, as we went through this, the scores kind of stay about the same. The biggest finding that we found was ACT reading scores, okay? You had a difference of 4.5 to 4.8 when it came to these scores. So we had to figure out, devise an action plan, how are we going to fix it? Once we've done that, some of the methods of action that we took with our action plan was taking those 11th grade students from the past 2 years and looking at how could we fix this? What's ways we can do this? So we said we would use our strategies class that goes from 10:15 to 10:45 every single day. Our principal has us do some different things throughout the year doing strategies, but we knew we would have 2 to 3 days a week where we could work on it. So on Tuesdays, you could work on, as a teacher, you could work on ACT English, ACT Math, ACT Science, any of those. But every day on Wednesday, we had to work on ACT reading because we wanted to really close those scores. If we close those scores, it would bring that cumulative score up also. Funds. You talk about funds, and with our funds, you see that not really going to cost us a lot. There's so many resources out there today with ACT that, not really going to cost anything for these teachers to be able to help these students. And the next two things, teacher and parent meetings, those are huge. And making sure they're part of the action plan and meeting with these teachers and meeting with these parents to really show them the importance of making well on these ACT tests and teacher professional development. Not thinking that your teachers are just going to know how to do it. You got to send them to PD. You got to send them. You got to do some ACT boot camps with them. You got to do some different things to make sure that they're getting the data that they need. The next thing, my methods and my study design. Just looking at that. We're going to take, the idea was to take 2 ACT practice tests and then take the real thing in April. The next part was 3 ACT reading practice tests, 1 in September, 1 in November, and 1 in March, and look at that data and see if the students are getting any better. With the data collection, I had some different people help me with my data collection. With my guidance counselor, she helped me find the data since 2014 through this past year, obviously, for our ACT data that we had. Our technology coordinator through Calhoun County Schools helped a lot. Our CMP director was the one who let me have the students who were free and reduced lunch. Our ACT prep teacher helped with prepping the different subject tests for these kids throughout the school year and helping devise a plan to be able to give these 11th graders their practice tests to be able to do better on them. Once we've done that, the results of this data, here they are. You look at the cumulative ACT scores. Our cumulative score from 2016 to 2017 went down by a full point because last year we had, and I'll say this because last year we had some kids that were in that, we had 6 or 7 kids make over a 32, so it drove those scores up. So our 2017 scores went to a 17.7, cumulative is a 20.6. You look at the free and reduced lunch though on the reading, and this is where we came up because we made more of an emphasis on it throughout our action plans. We went up by 0.3 points from this year to last year. We closed that gap by half a point, which I thought worked out pretty well. Could it be better? Definitely. Does it need to be better? Yes. And looking at those results and looking at those outcomes, the hardest part of this action plan was getting everybody to buy in, not being an administrator of your school yet, and getting everybody to use their strategies class wisely and do what I was trying to do and what the teachers on my hallway were trying to do because, we have a close-knit group and we work well together. So getting the teachers to buy in was hard as a leader. The next thing was the students. Getting the students continuously to want to work on the ACT. A lot of them don't want to go to college at Ohatchee. We have a lot of kids who say they're not going to go. They want to learn a trade, and that's perfectly fine. But if somebody's willing to give you a lot of money for this test, if you make well on it, that's our job as teachers to make you want to do well. And then parents, getting parents to buy in. They were kind of along those same lines. Well, my kid's not going to college. Why does he need to focus on this? So you got a lot of those questions. But one thing we did do a good job of was the next 3 bullets. Strategies, okay? What was our teaching strategies in class our teachers were using throughout their lessons? Our reading strategies got better. We began to use risk writing. We used manic post. We used different things in classes to help with being able to read and comprehend. And that obviously helped us on our ACT reading score, that therefore what you saw in the data just a while ago. So one of the things that the summary, got to have high expectations for all students. Having high expectations for all students will increase those scores, no doubt. Right? Who cares if they come from low-income places? The next part, engagement and enthusiasm. Engagement and enthusiasm from all teachers. And then making sure that our state, that we come up with some way to require these kids to meet benchmark. What have we got to do to make them require that, to make them put a little more effort into it? And then the next thing, covered the Alabama standard. The standards that were covered were Standard 11 and Standard 5, Continuous Skill Improvement and Community of Care of Students. And then my references, for my action plan. There are my references. The next part, as you look at this, management of learning organization is the project that I used because I thought it was super important that we restructure our funding in Calhoun County Schools for technology, especially for Ohatchee High School, in using our general budget. I think this is very important. One reason I think it's very important is because when you look at it, you see that proper technology use is going to increase engagement. There is no doubt in my mind. If we use it correctly, it's going to increase the engagement. It's a big part of society today. You know, our students are constantly using it. You constantly see it in all facets of life. I think it's huge, and I think it's greatly important that we, as a school system, put more of an importance on this technology year in and year out, and you know, allocate funds to it more regularly. The things I wanted to increase the technology in, obviously, BYOD doesn't cost us much. So therefore the funds, you know, aren't there. Kids can bring it to school, bring your own device. The next thing, ViewSonic boards. It's a board. They come about 65 inches. They make the room interactive. You can interact with students. Students can come up and use it. You can play different games on it. There's multiple things that ViewSonic boards do. They cost about $5,000. They're fairly expensive. But the most important thing I thought was the Google Chromebooks. And we're looking at the Google Chromebooks at Ohatchee. If we were to purchase just one more Chromebook, we could make our entire school a one-to-one school with Google Chromebooks, which would cost us roughly, you see there, about $9,000. And with that costing $9,000 or so, you see the Chromebooks cost $239. You have to have an activation fee and a charging card. If we're allowed to make sure that these students are one-to-one, using the Google Chromebooks, using Google Classroom all the time, we will come leaps and bounds from where we've been in the education field. Kids want to use technology. Kids love it. But you as a teacher, you can use it all day. You can use that computer, but are you using it correctly? Are you keeping students engaged? Are you doing the things that are necessary in your lesson planning to make sure that that happens? One thing that's going to affect in our general budget is technology keep up. You know, I understand that. Making sure that we allocate enough funds to make this happen. It's a large amount of cash. You know, we have to produce the malware. We have to have malware for the ViewSonic boards. You got to have malware for the Google Chromebooks. You got to think about malware for over your district's, you know, network system for the kids that are bringing BYOD. So you got to think about a lot of those things when it comes to money, all right, and it comes to allocating these different funds. Increased teacher technological professional development. You know, we got to think about making sure these teachers are getting the correct PD that they need to help their kids, to bring it back to their kids. Because if the teacher doesn't know how to use it, then how are the students going to know how to use it? So the teachers have to get great professional development throughout the school year to better themselves with these Google Chromebooks, ViewSonic boards, and you know, talking about maybe apps to use for the BYOD. What are some of the different things they can use? You may have to hire more technology directors. So if we have to hire more technology directors, it could possibly take away from a regular ed teacher. So that's some of the things there that could affect the budget in the end when we begin to do this, when we start to allocate these funds. And then the standards that I used that were addressed throughout my restructuring funding and technology budget were standard 3 for instruction, maximize learning through rigorous and relevant content in various ways, and standard 4, curriculum and development, differentiating instruction and addressing performance. Thank you.